Hello everybody, a warm welcome back to the stage one of Apidays Dubai and Middle East. This set of sessions in this segment will focus on the API ecosystem. Joining us first will be Vandana Verma, Chair of the Board of Director at OWASP Foundation. She'll be talking to us about the future of API security.
Hi, Prashant. Thank you so much. I'm really glad to be joining here, and thanks for the warm welcome.
Yes, yes, I
Yeah,
can see your screen also. So your
perfect.
video is coming loud and clear. It's over to you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Today, I'm talking about API security. Now, when we talk about API security, it's one of the term which is sometimes underrated, sometimes needed a lot of attention, and that's why we are talking about it today. And APIs are something which we need every day, every minute, every second. So API security is majorly, if I have to put it in simple terms, it's the protection of the integrity of the APIs. Because you must be hearing that there is this API got breached, there's this data got lost. So it's important that we understand what we own, what we have. So if we don't know what APIs we're using, a lot of times, especially with organizations I've seen, they don't know what APIs are in use. And sometimes when those APIs are no longer needed, still they are lying over there. The access is still there. So we would be talking about that and what is the future of APIs. So let me talk a little bit about myself. I am currently working with a company named Sneak, and I also serve on open source boards. So OWASP is Open Web Application Security Project, where I'm serving as a chair, first Asian, Indian, and a women chair for OWASP. There we take care of application security, API security, and all of that. So you can join, become a member, and be part of it, and learn about software security. Now, if I talk about this image, this is like the futuristic image of something what we want, what we really like, and what we really envision. Now, the point comes is that what exactly this is all about. We want automation. We want everything to be on our fingertips. We want everything to be like getting it to us so soon. But with great power comes great responsibility. Now, this also tells us when we are dealing with all these latest devices, it brings us to the point we need to take care of the security for them. We need to take care of content around it. So, could be you have a device at home which is uploading some information somewhere so that it can be analyzed and could give you the better result. But there is a situation wherein there are patches which are vulnerable, there are software updates which are vulnerable, are downloaded, or there are APIs which are by mistake left open. There could be a configuration issue, could be anything else which is there, which is transferring data or exfiltrating data from your application, from the client's server, or from the client system or server to somewhere else, which we do not want. So what we really want is we don't want these monitorings to happen. Think of an IoT device. We are using it day in and a day out. We're talking about smart AC, smart geyser, smart everything, or the whole smart ecosystem. So IoT makes it possible to connect our phones to fridge, to AC, to everything. And think of a situation wherein you've gone out. It's a summer. So if, I'm in Bangalore. There's no summer here, like summer heat. But if I'm in Delhi or if I'm in Dubai or if I'm in any other place where actually it's summer, and you want to come home with a cold house, but when you actually turn on the AC from your device, from your phone, but you reach home, it's super hot. Now you realize what has happened. So maybe your neighbor, somebody you know, has got into the device and has changed the settings. Or maybe an attacker has got into the system. It's so much possible. Think of those days where we used to hack or get into our neighbor's Wi-Fi, and still people do. Ideally, it's unethical, but people do. It's if the password is easy to crack. Now, the whole thing talks about we need to have security system, but how exactly that can happen? Now we are all part of DevOps teams. Whatever I say, I'm a security person, but I'm still part of the DevOps ecosystem, DevSecOps ecosystem. We're using microservices, we are using containers, we're using many latest technologies to bridge the gap between legacy servers to cloud native environments. So we have one foot in open source, one foot in legacy servers, one foot in cloud native environments. Especially during the pandemic, everybody was like, oh, we need to run the business, which was totally genuine. But then think of a situation when everyone was going online, everyone was shifting to cloud. There were certain things which were left open unintentionally most of the time. Now, attackers actually took advantage of it. So, when we talk about integrations, when we talk about interconnectivity, it becomes important that we understand what APIs we are using, what is the endpoint or interface that we are using, and why it is so important because businesses use these APIs which are well connected, well binded, and they're transferring the data from one place to another. To give you a perspective or an example, we are using one API just to check your bank account. But that API has given you such permission that you can actually check what all other people have in their bank accounts. You would be happy about it, especially if I get to know about that. I would be very happy. Yeah, even though I know I might not be able to do anything, but then think of a situation I know about who is how much. But from a security perspective, that's a big, big, big flaw. So broken, exposed, or probably breached APIs are behind these the major data breaches which have happened in the past. And if you are attending this talk because you take care of or you care about software security, and supply chain is again a big, big uh, uh, kind of a situation, a place which needs attention, and APIs are a big part of it. So apologies because I use or repeat a lot of words when I'm excited about something. So this is one topic which I really love talking about. Now, when I talk about developers as a malware distribution vehicle, have you ever thought of the situation? I, being a security person, have never thought of it. But the situations like this, wherein there are APIs, there are endpoints, there are third-party libraries which are becoming part of a breach. So in this particular case, event stream, which is in use since 2011, the package is being used by millions of users, and there are multiple downloads per week. When that's there, if somebody or a contributor sneaks in a small crypto miner in that, and everybody starts using their package, how crazy that would be. Think of the latest hack, which is like not even a few years, just a year back attack, SolarWinds, where there was a library which was packaged as part of the whole package, shipped to everyone. Everybody started using that software. So that Orion software was so popular that people were using it. And that was a big buzz around it. But are these things new? No, they have been there for a very, very long time. And that's what these attacks talk about. So if you have an API which is connected to the third party application, we need to understand that that the information that is going to the third party app is exactly the same that we intend to. So what it tells us that we need to manage those access rights, those authentication authorization mechanisms. So another important aspect is that why are we even talking about these small things, and especially authentication authorization? So web app API security is very much concerned about data transfer and data transfer through APIs. And if we don't have the right kind of authorization authentication, we're always in trouble. And that's how these OAuth, which is like which is an open standard for access delegation, is being in use for a very long time, and talks about we need to have proper check. And most APIs are implemented with either REST or SOAP APIs. And API, how exactly these are different, because the server is used more as a proxy. We are rendering components which are from the client side, not the server. And at the same time, it also says that we are consuming raw data most of the times when we talk about APIs. APIs expose a lot of implementation details because they are very well connected into the environment. So if we don't use the specific APIs for specific purpose or kill those APIs when not needed, we can be in trouble. And that it also tells us we are not in the monitoring cycle. So another important aspect comes is that we also need to take care of certain parameters which are set. I'll give you an example here. This is what we think that our app is. But do you think that this is our app? No. So this is exactly our app, wherein the dot is being written by us. Rest other is all open source. We connect with third party, we connect with open source, we have this, we have this, we have that. The whole blob is there. How exactly you can secure it? There are biggest breaches of all time which are happening. Think of Clubhouse hack. Clubhouse, I've been on Clubhouse, been chit chatting with a lot of people because it does not need to me be on camera and talk about or share my perspective. It's more like a community meetup that happens. So the leak behind that, LinkedIn. Think of this no X player breach. So all of these things are fine, but then there are certain recommendations that we need to take care of. Like we need to make sure that we are taking care of broken authentication level till authorization. Why do we say that and what exactly it is all about? Now, broken authentication is something where we are not having the right authorization at the endpoint level. And we have by this we are actually creating a bigger or wider surface level for access issues. Another important aspect is authentication. Who has access to what? um, I am not supposed to access the environment which is production environment. I'm a security person, but I still have access to that environment. Why so? I should not be having access. There was a time where one of a person from network team moved to security team. This person is supposed to manage firewalls. Now, this person is supposed to monitor firewalls. So that access needs to be changed. Similarly, for APIs, if an API is intend to do something, only do that, not the other function. We can create another API for that. So this person, we wanted some access to some app, and we were not getting. We raised the request; it was taking time. This person said, "Give me just 2 minutes." Open the firewall, did the changes, and said, "Oh, can you go ahead and check?" We were able to access. Now, this is a classic case of broken user authentication or authorization, where this person is not supposed to actually have access to it, but still have access to it. That access level has not been removed. So it's a combination of user authentication and authorization. Another interesting aspect is like excessive data exposure. Why do we need to have so much of exposure when we don't need it? And think of generic implementation. Developers tend to expose a lot of object properties without even considering that there are individual sensitivity. So if there's a particular API which has access to a lot of objects, which actually is needed, but at the same time, we can have separate APIs for it so that we can control the access separately. Let's actually try and attain that. A lot of times, my friends who keep sharing their stories, sometimes these stories become horror stories as well, because we have very limited time or very limited time and resources. So APIs do not impose any restrictions on the size or number of resources that actually the client is requesting. But if we're not limiting that, what will happen? Could be a denial of service, could be distributed denial of service where multiple users are able to attack our ecosystem and bring it down. Then another important aspect is that function level issues. So we have issues with policies, procedures, hierarchies, groups, roles. Those are very unclear a lot of times. So what generally happens is that, oh, you come into the system, you join, your ID is created, your roles are assigned, you move to another team, those roles carry on. Similarly, with APIs, more APIs come in. Sometimes we don't remove those roles. So function level authorization is very, very important, because by exploiting these issues, attackers can gain access to other resources or other users' resources. Like I said, if I get access to your account details, how cool would be that? I would love it. And Prashant was talking about it. Now he's a friend of mine, so I can go ahead and look at his account, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. But it's unethical. But who knows how exactly if an API is giving the information. Another important aspect is that mass assignment. So binding client provided data to the data models that we have without proper properties filtering can be a big issue, because we just go ahead and start allowing list, or just having the allow list, and it becomes a big problem for us. So, API endpoints, reading the documentation, or providing additional object properties and request payloads can actually lead to these mass assignments. Misconfiguration is something which is big, which has been there as a biggest issue. As per one of the research by Ponemon Institute, even the latest one talks about that security misconfiguration has been a big challenge, where we tend to miss on sometimes cross origin resource sharing, which actually I can read the other resources from other applications. And on top of it, injections have been there when we were kids. We've grown up, our kids are going to grow up, injection are still going to grow. So injection flaws such as SQL injection, no SQL injection, but what it is. So when an application take input from the user without validating, process it, send it to the database, and database just uses it or process it and give you the information back. Could be in the form of a command or could be in the form of a query. Like if I tell, oh, give me this data, give me these users, give me who has access to what, and it gives me. I would love it. I am total fan of remote code executions. I totally love that, wherein I can execute my code on some other website. So that'll be totally amazing. But then think of a situation when API has that issue and that can give me all the data. That'll be so amazing. And another important aspect is that asset management. Now, asset management is not just an API problem, but the worldwide problem, or especially the IT problem, wherein we tend to miss out on asset management or improper asset management. Sometimes we don't even know those assets exist in our ecosystem. Those API exist because the person who was working on it left and the API is not in use, but it's still lying over there and we're not monitoring. And on top of it, it also is one of the part for insufficient logging and monitoring, because insufficient monitoring and logging are coupled with missing or ineffective integration with incident response. We're not managing all the incidents which are coming up. Now, there are sayings, learn from others' mistake. So a lot of times we don't learn from others' mistakes. What happened? We just keep on going with that. And what happens? These biggest issues come into picture, from SQL injection to path manipulation to a lot of SaaS application issues which are there. So this API security checklist, what we can do, we can apply multi-factor authentication or an authentication method which is second factor, so that it can validate, encrypt our data whenever needed, be it rest, be it transit, be it motion. We need to have right authorization for access. And my favorite, just in time access. Now, what is that? You need the access, get the access, be done with it, close. That's it. That's one of the amazing things. So that you don't have to worry about who's going to have access, what, when I do need to remove. No. Just in time access, whenever needed, it's going to push and then it's going to come back. It's going to be done with that. So generally, I try shook hack, but here I'm going to just calm down and ask for any questions that you have, or I will just keep on going. So now I'll go ahead and wait here and ask for any questions you have before I showcase a small demo. Any questions for me?
Yes. So one is business logic attacks. I didn't see that in that API top 10. What should be done to address that? I mean, prevent that business logic attacks.
See, business logic attacks are more common tested manually, right? And attackers are trying to exploit them. But what we can do is, if we have the right authorization and authentication coupled with multi-factor authentication, probably we can avoid these business logic issues, because business logic issues, in my perspective, lead to a lot of denial of service attacks, because sometimes these sound simple, but then they actually couple together and become big issues. So I
Right.
did not want to keep it separate, but they become part of broken object level access and
Okay.
user authentication or API authentication.
Sure. Okay. And I mean, we do keep seeing the news about in this company getting hacked, that company getting hacked, millions of data stolen, everything, right? So
Mhm.
yes, well, these are all some things which could have been prevented by having a good API security mechanism. That's one. Yes, but
Right.
if you look from an industry perspective, are there any specific industries who are prone to attacks or who are more negligent in terms of securing the data? Rather, that way I would put more negligent, or when I mean many of the names when you hear those organizations are the ones which with a quarter billion or a half a billion of IT budget also, and then
Hmm.
uh, they leak millions of data
Yeah.
just like that. So
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. Yeah.
so, are there any specific industries who are negligent in terms of keep securing the data, or it's just a common factor everywhere? I mean, or is there somebody? I mean, like maybe I'm sure bank also is not the one safest we use can say, but still, are there any industries who are the most other than the API security industry itself?
I wouldn't comment on that. I'll be honest, because whatever I see, the moment you said, like, every other day we see the companies getting hacked, and there are companies which are sometimes not able to report also. So
Right.
now think of a situation that there is no particular industry which is
Mhm.
left behind and getting breached. Now,
Right.
if I have to put it in from a perspective wherein what can we do or what is lacking is the education, the awareness. Because
Mhm.
if we all know these things are there, see, hacks are inevitable, whatever we say. The moment you are on internet, your application is on internet, you're breached already. Think from that perspective.
Right.
Now, what we can do is we can actually circumvent that situation. We can only safeguard ourselves. Now,
Right.
there are some who are able to safeguard. There are some whose data is getting leaked. And I know the biggest breaches of all time where their data was getting leaked for a few months and they didn't even know about it because there was no proper mechanism for monitoring. The monitoring
Right.
tools were there, but they were not fine tuned. So there's
Right.
no particular business unit which is left behind. So here, would you say whichever unit that you have not seen is all safe? But still, the education awareness that what are the things that can impact us is important. And
Mhm.
there are certain threat intels that come specifically for certain industries because there are threat groups which keep targeting certain industries. So
Right.
probably we can get that threat intel, get it, feed it, and monitor our ecosystem. I think that
Mhm.
can help. But I wouldn't
Right.
say that, oh, this industry is better, that industry. Trust me, no. I would say that this is fine. So recently, I would name the company. Their CISO said, "Oh, we are the best of security."
Mhm.
Exactly 2 days after, their company was breached. After a week again, so it was like it was continuously the data was getting breached.
Right. Right.
So no one is secure.
Got it.
Be
Good
it,
normal.
be the top of companies. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Okay. So you wanted to share run some video? Something
Oh,
you were
it's
saying?
just a small. Sometimes what happens is like my system crashes or the demo gods don't shower their blessings, so I keep a video on. So this is just a small API that or the endpoint or a dependency that I wanted to showcase. So this API or sorry, this endpoint is nothing but a rec query I'm using via Express.js framework. So this is not the problem with rec query. This is the problem with the validation that we have. So what happens is that when we don't validate what kind of input from we would be getting from the users. So we'll say, oh, we'll be getting just this object, that's it. Or we'll be getting this from the user. So if let's say I am supposed to only accept string, but suddenly user change it to an array, and that becomes a issue. The vulnerability is like cross-site scripting, where an application takes input from the user, doesn't validate, doesn't even output encoding, and then prints it back to the user. That itself says that there are lack of proper checks which are missed. So similarly, this is the case wherein all the validations are there, even index of greater than, less than, all the checks are there. But still, here, if you see from string, if I convert it to array, so let me go ahead straight into the demo. Raries. So if you see right now, I am using it as a string, this particular parameter. This is the injection vector, or this is a cross-site scripting vector. Now, if so sanitization function is there, everything which it's supposed to be having. But then now, in front of name, I would change it to an array, and it'll start exploiting. It'll start executing. Why? Because validation was not proper at that particular place. So if you see, oh, I just said localhost 3001, but think of a situation where I'll say hacked by me. I have done it in the past, wherein I actually showcase those things. So I would say validation is one important aspect which is always needed at any given point of time. Uh,
Mhm.
and it is important that we respect that, we understand that, and we start working towards having the right validations.
Right. Okay.
All
Sure.
right.
That. So I'm sure the audience enjoyed and will enjoy the recording also. Learn a lot from your session. It was great having you here at API Days, Dubai and Middle East. Looking forward to more participation from you at API Days events. Thank
Thank
you,
you
Vandana.
so much. And I'm so sorry for the background because everyone is just working remotely, so you can hear the background. And yeah.